All right, so today we're going to look at Chapter 1. We're going to look at the introduction section. I would suggest that as we go through Chapter 1, you might want to read the sections each time after the video to get a better understanding of what's going on. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the vocab for this section. So let's start with individuals. We've kind of talked about this before in Chapter 4, but just to go over it again, these are our objects described by a set of data. And then we talked about if they were people, then we called them subjects. So a variable is any characteristic of an individual. And then categorical variable are places an individual. Basically, these are variables which place an individual into one of several groups or categories. And then quantitative variable. This takes numerical values for which it might make sense to find an average. All right, so this next question here, the first part on that statement is a little bit misleading. So really what that question where it says quantitative variables are not always numerical, that's not true. What I'm trying to say is that quantitative variables are not the only ones that have to be numerical. So categorical can also be numerical, such as like a zip code. It wouldn't make sense to find the mean zip code, or an area code, right? It doesn't make sense to find the mean area code. Another example would be like Social Security number, right? Once again, it wouldn't make sense to have a mean Social Security number. So usually what I think of quantitative is typically it's a measurement, and it almost always will have units with it. So think of quantitative as measurable data, like meters per second, time, length, distance, all those things. All right, and then a distribution. The distribution of a variable tells us what values the variable takes and how often it takes these values. That'll make more sense later when we look at distributions. All right, so number 2, skip all of the next page and go to the 3rd page. We're going to do that project tomorrow in class. It's not something that we can just sit at home and do. So let's go ahead and skip to number 3. So number 3 starts with data from a medical study contain values of many variables. So we're going to identify each variable that was recorded as either categorical or quantitative. So if we look at gender, it does not make sense, again, to have the mean gender. So this is categorical. Age, you can have a mean age, right, an average age. So this is quantitative. Race, right, we don't have a mean race. So this is categorical. Smoker, with the answers of yes or no, that's categorical. If they ask somebody how many cigarettes they smoked, that would then be quantitative. So E, blood pressure, that would be quantitative. You can see it's a measurement, millimeters of mercury. And then levels of calcium in the blood, that's also a measurement. That's also quantitative, right? You can have your mean level of calcium in your blood. So hopefully that's starting to make sense. This is really important because when we start to talk about the different types of graphs, well, the different types of graphs depend upon whether it's categorical or quantitative. All right, so number 4. Number 4 is talking about many people like to ride roller coasters. Amusement parks try to increase attendance by building exciting new roller coasters. So let's look at this. What individuals does this data set describe? So we're talking about the name of roller coasters, right? Basically, we're describing roller coasters. It'd be like, maybe not the name of, just roller coasters in general that were opened in 2009. All right, so part B, clearly identify each of the variables. So let's look at the first variable. The first one says roller coaster. So basically that's the name of the roller coaster, and that would be categorical. The next one is type, and that would be categorical. The next one is height. Height would be quantitative, it's a measurement. Design is categorical. Speed is quantitative, and duration is also quantitative. All right, and then it talks about units. So the height is measured in feet, the speed is measured in miles per hour, and the duration in seconds. So again, these are all measurements, right? You can have a mean height, you can have a mean speed, you can have a mean duration. You cannot have a mean name, a mean type, or a mean design. That just doesn't make sense. So that's an easy way to tell the difference between categorical and quantitative. And then describe the individuals in the highlighted row. So hopefully you can see that Prowler, Wood, 102.3, Sit Down, 51.2, and 150. So if we're going to describe it, we're basically writing a sentence or maybe a couple sentences about that roller coaster. So for instance, the Prowler is a wooden sit-down roller coaster whose ride lasts 150 seconds. The top speed is 51.2 miles per hour. So basically we just tied a sentence in there. Oh, I forgot to height. With a height of 102.3 feet. So basically we're just writing a couple sentences that include all of the different variables with the data included on that type of roller coaster. All right, so finally we get to see the dog. Number 5 is you are preparing to study the television viewing habits of high school students. Describe 2 categorical variables and 2 quantitative variables. So 2 quantitative variables might be something like the age of the student, which obviously would be in years. And then the other variable might be like the amount of TV watched, which would probably be in hours, right? And then for the 2 categorical variables, you might do something like nights or days TV is watched. So days TV is watched. So, you know, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you look for maybe the most often watched day of TV. Or you might also record like the type of show. Drama, comedy, that sort of thing. And those 2 would be categorical. So that's it.